you going, Slim?
Oh, up by the North Range.
You mean by the old Stagecoach station?
That's right.
That's funny.
How come?
That's where I'm headed.
Oh, yeah? Well, let's get going then. Hey, Buck! What's the matter with you, Buck? I thought you was aiming to be a top cowhand.
I am.
Well, you're acting like a dude. Only dudes and tenderfeet get their horses all winded and lathered up. Cowboy's got to learn to take care of his horse, but he knows he needs his horse to take care of him.
You're right, Slim. Next time I'll remember.
All right.
You sure have been up to the North Range a lot, haven't you?
Oh, suppose I have.
Doing what?
Working.
Working at what?
Something special.
What?
Surprise.
What kind of a surprise?
Oh, something special.
Gee, Slim, won't you tell me?
You're just about the most curious kid I ever did see. But you know, Buck, that's good. Wasn't for curiosity, people never would learn anything.
But what about the surprise?
Well, there's something else you ought to know about curiosity, too. Now, if you don't watch out, it'll get you.
What do you mean, Slim?
Well, for instance, now you're so curious about this surprise of mine that you're just about to bust. Now, if you do bust, where'll you be? You never will find out. Again, if you'll just settle back there and kind of relax, why, when we get there, I'll show it to you. Okay? Well, there you are, Buck. One of the old relay stations that used to serve the Stagecoach line. One of the few that's left standing in the West.
What's a relay station, Slim?
Well, these stagecoaches used to travel hundreds of miles on a trip, but every once in a while, well, they had to stop and change horses at a relay station. Now, these relay stations were spaced all along the stage route. Oh, anywhere from 12 to 30 miles apart, all depending on the country.
This building is pretty old, isn't it, Slim?
Yeah, about 100 years old, I'd say. She's built strong, too. These walls are about 2 feet thick.
Gee.
But don't get the idea that all relay stations were built the same way. Some were made of logs, others just plain old adobe mud. Whatever the country could afford. This one was once in hostile Indian territory. It was built strong for defense against the Indians.
Gee, Slim, that must have been fun.
Well, exciting, maybe, but not exactly fun. You wouldn't have thought so either if you'd have been a stage driver and had come into the relay station to find all the horses driven off and the boys dead and the buildings burned to the ground. And the gold missing.
Gold?
Why, sure, the old Wells Fargo and Butterfield stages carried millions of dollars of gold in their day, and every bit of it by Stagecoach. Oh, if the Indians weren't giving them trouble, why, the bandits were.
Gee, Slim, that's wonderful. How come you know so much about all these things?
Well, I'll tell you, Buck. Your granddaddy and mine came to this country when there was nothing here but a peck of trouble. They did a big job fixing it up for us to live in. So, I figure we kind of owe it to them to remember what they did.
Say, Slim, what about that surprise?
Okay, I'll tell you what. You stick around for a little bit, and I'll go get it for you. Well, what do you think of my surprise, Buck?
Well, a little stagecoach. I never did see one like this before.
Not many people have. This is a mudder.
A what?
A mudder or mud wagon. You see, she's built light. Nothing like the Concord coach, which is a regular stagecoach. They used this when the roads were bad, sometimes axle deep in mud.
You sure did a swell job fixing her up.
You see these straps that run from the front axle to the rear?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are called thoroughbraces. made up a new set. Then I greased the wheels and put in a new tongue. She's just good as new.
So this is what you've been working on all the time up here.
Yeah, I figured the folks at the parade next week might like to see what carried the mail when the regular coach couldn't get through.
She's built low, isn't she?
Well, that's so she can get over the rocky roads and around the sharp curves without tipping over. On a good stretch of road, a mutter can make a lot of time with a team of 4 horses.
4 horses? Say, wish we had some harness.
Oh, I've been working on that, too. I'll get it. Well, here you are, Cowboy.
Here's a lot of letters.
Oh, it sure is.
What's the name of that other kind of stagecoach, Slim?
Concord coach. You've seen them.
No.
Well, sure you have. Come here and I'll show you what I mean. Now, they were called Concord coaches because they were made in Concord, New Hampshire. Now, the body of the coach set on 2 thoroughbraces, just like I pointed out on the mudder there for you a minute ago. It was generally this shape right here, Buck. From here to here was your chassis, or your framework. Between the rear axle here to the front axle up here were your thoroughbraces. The whole stage swung between these. It was just like a rocker on a cradle. As a matter of fact, Mark Twain called it that one time.
Are you going to draw any horses?
Sure.
How many?
Well, a coach of this kind had a team of 6.
6?
That's right.
Too bad those old knots are in that old board.
Well, we'll just make mountains out of those. Up here's your driver and the guard that rides shotgun. Well, how do you like it?
Mighty fine.
What do you say we go hitch up our own coach?
But we need horses.
Well, let's go get 'em. Well, there you are, Buck. That's our wheel horses now. See, they go right next to the coach on each side of the tongue. You hang on to them now, and I'll get the lead team.
How'd we do?
Well, not bad, I guess, Buck. But you know, in the old days, the boys at a relay station could change a team in around 5 minutes.
Can I be the driver?
Well, not just yet. But you know, the driver of a stage was called a whip.
Oh, this is exciting.
Oh, this old mutter lived an exciting life.
You tell me about it?
Oh, I'm afraid you get too excited, Buck.
Oh, go on, Slim.
Yeah. Come on in. Okay, just as soon as I get settled, we will. You know, Buck, stagecoaches were an important part of the West because they played such an important role in opening up the country. Yes, the stagecoach followed right on the heels of the scouts and the covered wagons. Many of our roads and highways today follow right in the paths made by those old coaches on their run west from Kansas City and states like Ohio and Indiana. Long after they stopped using stagecoaches back east, they still continued to be the only vehicle for fast travel out here in the West. Now, you take back in the times of the gold rush in California, for instance. The railroads came no further west than Cincinnati, Ohio. But do you know that early settlers out in this country had to depend on the express companies that ran the stagecoaches even for their mail service? You see, the government wasn't able to do it. Right after the war between the states, they were too busy doing other things. And when people really started to come out west, settlements sprang up all over the place. Sometimes no more than 5 or 6 buildings separated from one another by miles and miles of desert, mountains, and untracked country. Well, sir, the stagecoach tied all these little places together, gave them a sense of belonging, provided the folks in them with a means of keeping in touch with one another, carried all the late news from the west to the east to the west, pretty fast, too, usually around 21 days. Regular and generally on time. And that's a very good record when you consider what they had to put up with. Bad roads or no roads at all. Washouts, bandits, and Indians.
Indians?
Oh, sure. Many of the stagecoach lines ran through hostile Indian territory.
Gee.
Believe me, Buck, stagecoach drivers and the guards that rode with them were a special breed of men.
Did they have boys in those days?
Oh, they've always had boys, I guess, Buck.
Do you think a boy can be a guard on a stagecoach?
Well, you're sitting in the guard's seat.
Gee.
I remember hearing about a brush that old Dusty Beale had with the Indians one time. Dusty was one of the greatest whips that ever drove a stage through the Old West. In fact, it had been months since a stage had been able to get through on a regular run. Well, after a time, the white men and a big Indian chief by the name of Cochise got together and set up sort of a peace treaty. And the chief agreed to let the stagecoach go through with the mail. Well, now that was all right, except that there was another Indian chief by the name of Geronimo who didn't go along with the idea. He swore to run every white man out of the country. But that didn't make any difference to Dusty Beale and his guard, a feller by the name of Harry Rivers, because they volunteered to take through a stage. Every mile that slipped by under the turning wheels took Dusty and Harry further into Indian country. They wanted to travel light and fast, so for that reason they took the mudder, just in case they did run into trouble. Good thing they did, too, because as they were really getting underway. Pete.
Did I have any trouble with Indians this trip?
Had a little skirmish up in Furnace Creek, but we got you some mail here.
Oh, got this.
Take care of that lead team, Eddie. They're mighty fine horses.
Indians!
Friendly Indians.
Sure, a swell story.
Okay, you guys, reach.
Okay, Fred, put down that gun. I'd know you anywhere with that dirty handkerchief.
Me too.
Say, Slim, that's some outfit you got there. It sure is. What you gonna do with it? You plan on entering the parade next week?
That's it.
Man, it's a cinch to take first prize.
You bet.
Yeah, this old mudder sure had some adventures.
I'll bet it has. Say, Slim, you plan on heading back to the ranch right away?
Yeah, I want to get back before dark.
Well, we'll ride with you. Which way you going?
Down the trail?
Down the trail.
Down the trail, where the ghosts are riding, riding, riding. Down that trail, where my fears are hiding, hiding, hiding. Dead men's lips will do no confiding, will do no confiding. Where the ghosts of the bad men will ride in the night when the stars are failing. To the camp where the ghosts are trailing. There are sounds, hear the sobbing, wailing, 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 where the ghosts of the bad men ride. Stories oft repeat when hoofbeats in the street, made by the bandit band. 6 guns spit and fire, make a burning funeral pyre, sun glinting redly on the sand. Down the trail, where the ghosts are riding, riding, riding. Down that trail, where my fears are hiding, hiding, hiding. Dead men's lips will do no confiding, will do no confiding. Where the ghosts of the bad men ride, where the ghosts of the bad men ride.